as these feelings just grow and grow and grow, welcome to a Notsam Wrestling emergency podcast, one of the most significant Notsam Wrestling emergency podcasts of all time, because as we sit here together, we live in a world where the thing that we thought would never happen has happened. John Cena has turned heel. Yes, John Cena closes out the Elimination Chamber 2025 as a villain. And I know you go, unthinkable. I thought about it. We all thought about it. Of course, it was a thought. It was a hypothetical. You sit there last week on the podcast when I sat around doing like 8 different possible scenarios that only the final boss, by the way, is the type of character that can show up. And the only thing I can do on the podcast, because people go like this, what do you think's going to happen? Well, here's 8 different things that might maybe happen, and it might be none of them. Also, by the way, that's the power of the final boss, but the power of the final boss has unleashed the power of one of the most compelling character arcs that we've seen in modern wrestling history, which is John Cena finally turning heel. I mean, talk about an incident that would give us feelings. And I say that this is something that we thought of because, like I said, it was one of the scenarios that we concocted when I was making that episode of Notsam Wrestling last week. And it was definitely a theory that I had heard people say. But there's a big difference between saying something and truly believing that it's going to happen. So let me walk you through my emotions, right? Because it's one thing to go like, oh, this is possible. Oh, this could happen. It's another thing to be like, put money down. This is how I see it. The idea of, I would argue, the idea of John Cena turning heel now is bigger than Hulk Hogan turning heel, and time will tell. But the reason that I say that is because Hulk Hogan became a villain at a time when people were done cheering for him. Hulk Hogan became a villain when audiences were booing him regardless of what his actions were. John Cena has decided in a moment where he has never been more beloved, in a moment where people have never been more willing to cheer for this person, John Cena has decided now is the time to fully execute and become the villain that we all asked for throughout the PG era. It is absolutely insane. So here's how I'm feeling. Last night, I was there. I was in Toronto. I was blessed enough to be there. The only reason this emergency podcast didn't come out immediately after the show late last night was because I was in Toronto. And I said I could run back to the hotel and do some half-assed hotel room show, or I could sneak into the press room, try to get some sound bites out of the final boss, which, boy, did I get some sound bites out of the final boss, and then come home, sit in this comfortable Notsam studio, and still drop an emergency feelings pod before we drop the Monday pod that'll, of course, come out tomorrow. So I'm sitting there, right? And the Elimination Chamber match, so much fun. The scenarios that were set up, the stories that were all intertwined with each other, the idea that Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins still have resentments that go back to last year's WrestleMania, the idea that Seth and Drew, even though they're enemies, both hate CM Punk, the idea that CM Punk hates those guys, but he's really focused on going to WrestleMania, but he also hates Logan Paul because Logan Paul's lame. And then you've got John Cena coming back. And what is the first thing that we said here on Notsam Wrestling? We said, oh my God, this means that we're going to get a scenario where in 2025, John Cena and CM Punk are going to put hands on each other. That's the showdown. I mean, this is one of these fantasy matches that we concocted when John Cena first announced he was going to go on this year-long retirement tour. And now here we are. So we see this match. It has all these great moments. Drew McIntyre screwed again. Same guy who eliminated him from the Royal Rumble, eliminates him from the Elimination Chamber. Great. You know, Seth is doing the Seth stuff. Logan Paul has all these great moments. I like that Logan Paul is starting to evolve into somebody who it's not just like, whoa, did you see what Logan Paul did in terms of athleticism? But I think as time goes on more and more, it's becoming a story-based thing, which is where wrestling has to go to be as big as humanly possible. But then we've got this moment, that moment, and we'll get into Elimination Chamber on the Monday pod, but that moment where John Cena looks at CM Punk and he says, I missed you, and CM Punk says, I missed you too, and they go to battle with each other. They go to war, and eventually it's John Cena that's standing tall at the end of the Elimination Chamber match. And see, in my head, and I'm a fool for thinking this way, I'm a total fool, because they did such a good job of promoting the Elimination Chamber as this singular event and The Rock and Cody Rhodes as this separate rivalry. I said, the Elimination Chamber is in this box. The Rock and Cody Rhodes is in this box. And yes, they could, obviously whoever wins the Elimination Chamber is supposed to fight Cody Rhodes, so clearly they will mix at some point. But in terms of the Elimination Chamber PLE, I looked at it as two separate things. And then Cody Rhodes came out. And Cody Rhodes came out and had a respectful stare down kind of with John Cena. And that's when I said, when Cody Rhodes came out, it wasn't until then that I put the pieces together. And I said, oh, I think we're going to get The Rock involved with this right now. I don't think that John Cena is going to leave. We're going to start a new segment. And I was right. Because then all of a sudden, The Rock's music hits. And here comes Travis Scott down the aisle with The Rock. And Travis Scott, if you're somebody who, this isn't said with any criticism whatsoever, because I love wrestling more than anything in the world. And if you've decided that really you're pretty much going to pay attention to wrestling and nothing else, I say you're good. You're paying attention to all the stuff that really matters anyway. But if you don't know who Travis Scott is, just a massive, massive star. If you see all these shoes that all the cool people like me wear, with these are Travis Scotts. Everybody loves Travis Scott. He's the hottest thing in music and pop culture. And here he comes to the ring with the final boss, which is interesting because I would have thought Travis Scott was more of a babyface than that. And he's saging, because remember he was, I think he was doing something else on the Netflix. But we saw last Travis Scott with Jey Uso. So Travis Scott comes out with the final boss. And the final boss is in all of his glory as he comes to the ring. And he's in final boss gear. He's not in, I just bought a Versace vest promo gear. He looks a lot more like the gear that he wore to the ring at WrestleMania. This is the pre-entrance. This is the final boss's, this is his fighting gear, is what I saw it as he was walking to the ring. I went, oh boy, this is big. Like when you see Cody come to the ring and he's got a suit on, he's probably not planning on fighting anybody. When he's wearing athleisure, watch what you say because he's ready to go. So final boss comes out and he says he's ready for Cody's soul. He's ready to go ahead and let Cody hand his soul over. And in that moment, I'm sitting there and I had this feeling. And it was similar to the feeling of Royal Rumble 2023 when it's Kevin Owens tied up and Sami Zayn has the chair and Roman's in there and the Usos are in there. And that huge moment when Sami finally turns on Roman. But this was a little different. With Sami, you kind of saw a path of where it was going to go. You weren't sure it was going to go that way, but you kind of saw a path of where it was going to go. I felt this feeling watching that show, and I think a lot of people in the building did as well, where in that moment, there was a tension and a hush to those 40,000 folks in the Sky Dome. Because we all, and I will speak for myself, I watched that going, I don't know what's going to happen here, but something is going to happen here. And interestingly enough, being backstage on yesterday, the vibe from everybody, and this is legit, was, I think something big is happening tonight. Oh, why? What have you heard? I don't know. Nobody knew. Okay? And I think that translated to the audience as we're all watching and we're going where is this going to go? And in my head, in that moment, when confronted with the reality, I said, somebody's got to turn. I said it to the guy next to me. I think somebody's got to turn here. But when confronted with the moment, I said, it's got to be Cody, right? We can't really be turning John Cena. That's not really going to happen, right? And then Cody says, I want it all, Rock. And I said, no. Yeah? Cody said, my soul is no longer my own. I go, no. Yeah? But then he says, because I left my soul in this ring. I gave my soul to all these people. And then what did he say? He said, Rock, go yourself. And I went, oh my God. Like in that, it's just like, holy is what I said. Because I'm sitting there like, I can't believe it. Like Cody legit uttered that phrase, but we've got an absolute, definite, and finite answer. It's not this sort of wishy-washy. It's not, well, you're giving me a lot to think about, Rock. I don't think I can do it, but maybe, tune in next week. We'll find out. Maybe by the time we get to WrestleMania, it's no. A hard pass to your offer, Rock. And John Cena is in the corner making, these big faces. And I think that that's something really interesting about what's happened with John Cena, because whether it was at the Royal Rumble, whether he's done these things where he's very over the top and animated with his facial expressions. It's almost like he's having too much fun. It's distracting from the suspension of disbelief, from the battle that we want to believe that he's in, because we can see this guy having the time of his life. And all of it was paid off in an instant. When that tension was just there in the ring. When Cody said no, he said go yourself, is what he said. But in that moment where first nothing is happening and you don't know what's going to happen, and the performers in the ring are almost in this position like, where are we going to go here? And then Cena's jumping up and down like a kid. He's acting like me, going, I can't believe he just said that. And hugs Cody. And The Rock nods his head. And Cody doesn't see him because Cody's back is to The Rock. And then The Rock, and I brought this up in the press conference to The Rock because what have I been telling you? Everything counts. People who've been running around talking like, no, everything doesn't count. People who've been, by the way, it's time to retire the idea of in February saying, I don't know about this build to WrestleMania. Oh, you go on YouTube, it's flooded with videos with this wonderful hot take. Boy, this road to WrestleMania, this is not a great one. It's February. How many roads to WrestleMania are white hot in February? It doesn't happen that way. It never happens that way. What are you talking about? And now, I don't hear anybody announcing how wrong they were, because boy, were they wrong. Rock takes his hand and does the same cutthroat gesture that he did at Bad Blood, except I believe this time, instead of 3 fingers up, he had 2 fingers up. And don't forget that Cody Rhodes was one of 3 people in the ring when he made that gesture. Cody, Jimmy Uso, and Roman Reigns, I believe. 2 fingers go up, throat cut, and John Cena obliges him. Low blow to Cody Rhodes, and that's not enough. Rock and John Cena go to town on Cody. They beat Cody Rhodes bloody. Travis Scott gets his licks in. Travis Scott is a heel now. And John Cena puts his face over the champion Cody Rhodes and holds up Cody Rhodes' championship. And people go like this. They go, well, why? John Cena, what would John Cena need from The Rock? John Cena already is a movie star. John Cena already is known as the greatest of all time. John Cena already is the 16-time champion. That's the point. He's the 16-time champion. And what does he keep doing? He keeps losing. What if John Cena doesn't want a nostalgia tour? What if John Cena, as much as he says, I want to win the 17th title so I can shake the hands of the 18th champion, the one who wins it 18 times? What if what he really wants is just to be the 17-time champion? What if the idea of, I want to be the humble goat is starting to play tricks with him in his mind. Because being humble, no problem. Your humility is not to be questioned. But what if you don't get 17? And you keep losing? And what if you can't beat Cody? Then what do? Are you the humble goat, or are you just a humble, really great guy? And I think that is the security that the John Cena character would need. The ability to know that the board of directors is behind him. And that at the end of the year, fine, that you can have whoever you want as the champion. But right now, John Cena needs to be the champion, and he's been losing a lot of matches, and it's not cute anymore. It's not fun. John Cena maybe eventually will shake hands with whoever wins the championship 18 times. But number one, it's going to be really tough to do, and he knows that. Number two, he ain't shaking hands right now. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and I'll go back to the point that I made on the podcast when the final boss came back a week ago, which was in that moment that The Rock was in the ring, pure final boss, asked for Cody Rhodes' soul. I don't think that there is anyone even close right now, or maybe in the last several decades, that does better as a good guy, that gets the crowd behind them more as a good guy when confronted with an absolute baddest of the bad guys than Cody Rhodes. I think that Cody Rhodes is almost unique in a sense, because there's something about an extreme supervillain reminding us of the superhero that we have in front of our faces week in, week out, every single show. Familiarity breeds contempt. We don't appreciate enough the rare air, as The Rock said in the press conference, that's around us when we have a babyface like Cody Rhodes. It is such a rare thing. But you know how we get reminded of it? We get a supervillain that in many cases is so huge they would eclipse any babyface that they were in a match with. The final boss can't just wrestle anybody, because the shadow that the final boss casts is too large for most of the light around a babyface to outdo. Honestly, it's the same thing with Roman Reigns. And it's the same thing with a bad guy, John Cena. Who's the one person who can look at a bad guy, John Cena, and go, no, I can defeat you. And these fans are behind me defeating you. That's Cody Rhodes. Now, a bad guy, John Cena, goes beyond Cody Rhodes. I mean, there's so much potential here. We were all talking about a Randy Orton heel turn. What about a villainous John Cena versus a hero Randy Orton? What about eventually getting to the place where, who knows? What if John Cena takes the title off Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania and it's CM Punk who has to beat John Cena? What if CM Punk finally gets the WWE Championship as a good guy in this era, and the guy that he has to beat for it is John Cena? What about a villainous John Cena versus a babyface Jey Uso? The idea that Drew McIntyre versus John Cena is a match that we all want to see. What if it causes Drew McIntyre? What if that's the thing that pushes him more over to the babyface side? Who knows? Because that's a very real possibility. You've got a night two WrestleMania main event in the bag. I can't imagine anything bigger. The idea of John Cena as a heel, a main event heel for the first time. This is like when people go like, I mean, because this happened, I think I said it on a documentary, like nobody had ever seen Hulk Hogan as a heel when he went over to the NWO. And people were like, yes, he did in the AWA. He was Terry the Hulk, and he was a heel in the AWA. Yeah, okay. I'm talking about WWE WrestleMania era main event Hulk Hogan. It hadn't happened. It's the same thing for John Cena. Yeah, Dr. Thugonomics was a heel. Okay. I'm talking about Super Cena. I'm talking about Big Match John. That's never happened as a villain, especially a straight-up villain, a villain who won't talk to reporters in a press conference. I probably could have gotten one question in for Cena, one question in for Rock. Cena walked out. I had to get two for Rock. Hey. I'm just taking opportunities as I see them. But man, there's just so Everything has changed. Triple H posted a tweet or Instagram or whatever that said that Elimination Chamber was going to be industry shifting. And it is. I mean, to go from on Friday, people going, I don't know about this build to WrestleMania, to now going, this is going to give 40 a run for its money, to now going, I get to tell my friends who haven't watched wrestling in 20 years that John Cena versus Cody Rhodes is the main event and John Cena is a bad guy. I mean, you just went from John Cena's in the main event because it's so cool to see John Cena at WrestleMania to John Cena is in the main event because there is nothing remotely as compelling as villain John Cena versus Cody Rhodes. And I think that you do have to look at the magic that happened with the final boss and the fact that instead of The Rock going on a nostalgia run leading up to WrestleMania 40, the pivot happened and a new character was born. And a third leg of The Rock's career was created. And the legacy, instead of celebrated, was actually built upon when the final boss came into being. And that's what's happening here with John Cena. That this is not a year of celebrating John Cena. This has now become, we're going to spend some time this year building that legacy of John Cena and having him show, like, what if, what could have happened? We don't have to ask those questions anymore because now at peak John Cena, at his most famous, at his most marketable, he's coming into the WWE to take out the biggest good guy that they've got. What about Roman Reigns versus John Cena with Roman as a good guy? I mean, there's so much to do. Or Cody and John Cena just go to war for a season, for the spring. I'd be down for it. I mean, Cody, by the time we get to WrestleMania, we're going to want Cody to have that hero moment with John Cena. But the idea that John Cena wins the WWE Championship, gets booed out of WrestleMania, and then Cody rebuilds, Cody tells that Rocky story where he has to come back and conquer John Cena, that too is unbelievable to me. When you talk about heel turns, I recency bias being what it is, I'm still going to say it. I mean, that pantheon, and I'm not going to say Mount Rushmore because I use that properly, but the pantheon of heel turns is, I mean, obviously Shawn and Marty comes up, but in terms of like industry shaking, Shawn and Marty comes up because it is sort of the go-to example, and it was shocking, but when you talk about industry shaking, when you talk about things that changed wrestling forever, you go to Hogan Andre, you go to Hogan joining the NWO, you go to, for me, Paul Heyman appearing alongside Roman Reigns on SmackDown after Roman returned at SummerSlam 2020. And you go to John Cena turning heel at the Elimination Chamber. And out of those top four, I don't have John Cena turning heel fourth. That's for damn sure. And with the way stories are being told right now, with the way things are being built upon, oh, we are in for it, guys. We are in for it. I'm glad we could discuss our feelings. I'm glad we got this out there. Don't forget that there will be, of course, our weekly Not Sam Wrestling podcast going up. There's also going to be, hopefully, potentially, a lot of news in the podcast space. So if you like these breakdowns, and we know The Rock does, just keep it locked, okay? We're cooking. Everybody's cooking right now. It's WrestleMania season. We are here. The unthinkable has happened. Now that I've got my feelings out, let me put some thoughts down. Let me get analytical, and I will see you soon. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the audio feed. Leave reviews, ratings, leave comments on YouTube, and I'll talk to you guys very soon.